Ladies, let's talk about something powerful, something that shifts the entire dynamic. Have you ever caught yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never comes? That awful drop in your stomach, when a man who once seemed so into you suddenly pulls away, goes silent, or worse, acts like you never existed. I know that feeling. It's frustrating, disorienting, even painful. And when you're tempted to double text, scroll through his social media, or ask him, "Did I do something wrong?" Stop. Because today I'm going to show you a response that's calm, controlled, and incredibly magnetic. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it makes him feel the impact of ignoring you without you saying a single word. Here's the truth. Chasing a man, explaining yourself, or trying to fix the situation only pushes him further away. Men don't respond to pleading, they respond to absence. They don't miss the woman begging for answers, they miss the woman who becomes unreachable. This isn't about manipulation, it's about understanding how people work. When you understand your own value, you don't have to fight for attention, you naturally draw it in. When done right, this doesn't just get his attention again, it makes him rethink everything. So, stay with me, because what I'm about to share will forever change how you deal with a man who goes quiet. First, detach emotionally. Take control of your reaction. The second he pulls back, you feel it like a stab in the chest. Confusion, self-doubt, that aching need for clarity. You check your phone, you replay your last conversation, you look for signs. And then your hand reaches for your phone, ready to type out, "Hey, is everything okay?" But stop, right there. That moment is where most women lose themselves. They panic, they react, they give away their power in search of reassurance from someone who's not giving anything in return. And here's the cruel twist. Every time you reach out, he pulls further away. The more you try to fix it, the more disinterested he becomes. But what if I told you the most powerful move is silence? What if the most effective reaction is none at all? Men are wired differently. While women often seek emotional connection through communication, men process attraction through challenge and space. When they feel they've got you, the chase ends. It's not intentional. It's just how their brains work. A man values what he earns, not what is handed over freely. When you react emotionally to his distance through frustration, desperation, or passive aggression, you signal that he holds the power. But a woman who can stay calm and detached, she becomes unforgettable. Picture this. His replies slow down. His messages get shorter. Maybe he stops initiating altogether. Most women panic at this point. They blame themselves. They overcompensate. They become more available, more eager, hoping he'll notice. But the woman who knows her worth doesn't do that. She pulls back. She welcomes the silence. She doesn't chase. She doesn't try to fill the gap. She becomes a mystery, a question he's suddenly desperate to answer. This isn't just about doing nothing, it's about showing him, without words, that his absence doesn't dictate your emotions. When he expects a reaction and gets none, he has to sit with a new, uncomfortable truth. The idea that he might actually be losing you. And here's the best part. This isn't about acting. You don't need to fake being calm or detached. You need to train yourself to truly feel it. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it's discipline. It's the strength to resist the temptation to seek validation from someone who's not giving it. It's learning to turn inward instead. That voice in your head will push you. Just send one message, just check his profile, just post something subtle, he'll see. That's the voice you have to ignore, because every time you don't act on those impulses, you reclaim your power. So how do you build that detachment? First, recognize that your feelings are not commands. Feeling anxious doesn't mean you must act. Acknowledge the emotion, but don't obey it. Second, remind yourself of this. A man who truly values you will never put you in a position where you doubt your worth. If he's ignoring you, intentionally or not, he's sending a message. Your job isn't to decode it. It's to decide whether that kind of message even deserves your attention. Then shift your energy. Stop obsessing over his behavior and redirect your focus to yourself, not because you're pretending not to care, but because you're genuinely deciding to care more about your own peace. When you stop making him your priority, when you remove him from the center of your thoughts, he feels the difference. He notices the drop in your energy. And that's when the balance begins to shift. But here's the twist. When he does return, and he will, you still don't react the way he expects. Most women, when a man comes back, feel instant relief. They reply fast, they act like nothing happened, and just like that, the cycle resets. He learns there are no consequences, and his respect starts to fade. But the woman who's truly detached, she doesn't rush. She doesn't reward inconsistency. She makes him work to earn her attention again. And that's when something rare happens. He starts to feel uncertain. He starts to wonder, and that feeling, the one he's not used to, is what pulls him back in. Because uncertainty is where attraction begins. He begins to question, has she moved on? Is she seeing someone else? Why isn't she responding like before? Why does it feel like he no longer has the same hold over you? That's when the dynamic shifts, because you're no longer playing the role of the woman waiting for validation. You've become the woman he now has to figure out, the woman he's unsure about. And that uncertainty is what draws him back in. This is not about being heartless. It's about maintaining your self-respect. Emotional detachment doesn't mean suppressing your needs or pretending you're fine when you're not. It means refusing to allow someone else's inconsistency to dictate your worth. A woman who knows her value doesn't beg for breadcrumbs. She doesn't hold on to someone who doesn't choose her consistently and clearly. So when a man starts pulling away, you don't panic, you don't chase, you don't react. You let the silence speak. You let him feel the absence of your presence. And that absence becomes heavy. Because deep down, even if he doesn't say it, he notices the shift. He starts to sense that the space you once filled emotionally, mentally, and physically is now vacant. And here's the beauty of this move. You're not doing anything to manipulate. You're just allowing things to unfold. You're no longer fighting to prove your worth. You're simply stepping into it. Because when a man feels the void you left behind, he starts to realize that ignoring you had a cost. It wasn't neutral. It wasn't harmless. It came with consequences. And the biggest one is losing access to a woman who now realizes she doesn't need him to feel whole. This is where your transformation begins. You're not just stepping back from him. You're stepping back into yourself, the version of you that got lost in the waiting, in the overthinking, in the people-pleasing. That version starts to fade. And what rises in its place is a woman who finally sees the truth. His silence isn't rejection, it's redirect. So instead of pouring your energy into decoding mixed signals, shift your focus. Put that energy where it belongs, into yourself. Reclaim your time, reinvest your emotions, rebuild your sense of self outside of him. Because the moment you stop trying to get his attention is the moment you begin to attract everything that was meant for you. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because you finally stopped chasing and started evolving. That's when people notice. That's when he notices. Not because you're doing anything for his benefit, but because your energy has changed. You're no longer operating from a place of lack. You're moving from a place of abundance. It's not about posting a picture to make him jealous. It's not about subtweets or indirect messages. It's about genuinely showing up in your life for you, not for him, not for anyone else. And here's what happens next. He checks his phone, expecting to see a text from you. Nothing. He opens social media, maybe looking for a sign that you're still thinking about him. But instead, he sees you glowing without him, living your life, surrounded by people, projects, and joy that have nothing to do with him. And that's when regret sets in. That's when he starts questioning everything. Not because you played a game, but because you walked away with grace and gave him the one thing he never thought you would: space. That space becomes his problem to solve. That silence becomes a mirror. He starts to see what he lost, not because you reminded him, but because you stopped reminding him. And this is where most women get stuck, because as soon as he returns, as soon as he reaches out, it feels tempting to respond with excitement. But remember this, just because he comes back doesn't mean he's changed. And just because he misses you doesn't mean he deserves access to you. This time, you don't rush to reply. You don't pick up right where you left off. You don't hand him the same version of you that he took for granted, because that version no longer exists. He has to earn his place again, not through words, through consistent effort, through real presence. And if he can't show up like that, then he doesn't get to show up at all. That's the power of becoming unavailable to what once drained you. That's how you make a man feel the true price of ignoring you, by no longer giving him the privilege of your presence. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who is unpredictable. The moment a man believes he has you all figured out, when he knows exactly how you'll react, when he assumes your attention is guaranteed, he stops valuing it. But the moment mystery enters the room, when he starts to wonder what's going on in your mind, when he no longer knows where he stands, that's when you become irresistible. Most women make the mistake of reacting to being ignored by doing more, explaining, clarifying, over-communicating. They try to pull him back with long messages, emotional pleas, or subtle hints. But men don't fall in love through logic. They fall in love with what they can't fully grasp. It's not your explanations that keep him up at night. It's the questions you leave behind. Think about it. If you've been messaging him daily, always initiating conversation, always posting things he can see, it becomes routine. He expects it. And when something becomes expected, it starts to lose its value. But imagine this. One day, there's no message, no post, no sign. You disappear. Not out of spite, but because you're living. You break the pattern. And suddenly, there's a shift. At first, he might not notice. Maybe he assumes you're just busy. But as the hours pass, as the silence stretches, as his notifications stay empty, he starts to wonder, did something change? Did you move on? Is someone else in the picture? That mental loop begins not because you chased him, but because you stopped showing up. And that's how mystery works. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It creates space for his curiosity to grow. It forces him to re-engage, not out of guilt, but out of intrigue. And when he finally reaches out, and he will, you don't respond immediately. You don't rush to fill in the gaps. You don't act as though you've been waiting. Your reply is calm, light, slightly distant. Not cold, not rude, but different. And that difference, that subtle shift, makes him take notice. He starts to ask himself, what's changed? Why isn't she reacting like she used to? That seed of uncertainty begins to grow. Because here's the truth. Men chase what they're unsure about, not because they don't care, but because uncertainty activates their desire. Predictability dulls interest. But a woman who holds something back, a woman who keeps certain pieces of her life private, becomes endlessly fascinating. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to get. There's a difference. One is a game, the other is a reflection of value. A confident woman doesn't overshare. She doesn't flood a man with emotion in hopes he'll return it. She doesn't broadcast every thought in hopes he'll see her heart. She simply lives fully, richly, and independently. And that energy, it draws people in without effort. Mystery means keeping some things just for yourself. It means breaking patterns. It means not giving him the reaction he expects every time. It means sometimes being quiet instead of loud, calm instead of confrontational, detached instead of demanding. Think about the women men can't forget. They weren't always available. They weren't overly predictable. They weren't obsessed with proving their worth. They had something different, a depth, a quiet confidence, a presence that lingered even in absence. That's what you want to cultivate. Because men don't fall in love with what they understand. They fall in love with what they feel but can't fully explain. With the way you make them wonder. With the silence that lingers after you walk out of the room. With the space you allow them to enter but not take for granted. So the next time you're tempted to explain yourself, to chase clarity, to pour out your feelings in hopes of getting a response, pause. Ask yourself, what would a woman who truly values herself do? Would she type out a long message explaining her every emotion? Or would she let the silence say what words never could? Would she try to prove she's worthy of his attention? Or would she know that her worth doesn't need an audience to be real? Mystery isn't manipulation. It's not coldness. It's presence. It's depth. It's the art of being unforgettable without trying to be. And when you master that, you don't just capture a man's interest. You command it. Because in a world where everyone is trying so hard to be seen, the woman who isn't chasing attention becomes the one who gets it without asking. Patience is power. In a world where everyone is addicted to instant gratification, where we expect replies within minutes and validation on demand, a woman who knows how to wait becomes powerful beyond measure. Time becomes your ally when you stop chasing and start allowing. Because when you allow a man to feel the full impact of your absence, you create space for something he never expected: regret. Most women don't use time to their advantage. They panic. They believe if they don't act now, they'll be forgotten. They worry that silence equals lost opportunity. But the truth is, when you stay silent, when you create that void and don't rush to fill it, something begins to stir in him. At first, he may feel relieved that you're not reaching out. But with time, as you stay silent longer than expected, that relief turns into uncertainty. He starts to feel uncomfortable. He starts to think. He notices that the pattern has broken, that the version of you who once texted, called, or checked in is no longer present. And that absence, it grows louder with each passing day. Because men don't miss what's always available. They miss what disappears without explanation. Letting time pass doesn't mean you're waiting. It means you're healing. It means you're no longer feeding into the cycle of inconsistency. It means you're choosing peace over chaos. Because every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you're reinforcing your self-worth. But this is where many women sabotage themselves. They hold out for a few days, maybe a week, and then give in. They send a casual message just to check in. They post something, hoping to spark a reaction, and just like that, the power they were building disappears, because the moment you remind him you're still there, still waiting, still wondering, you erase the mystery. A man will never feel the need to act urgently if he knows you're still available whenever he decides to return. But when he starts to feel uncertain, when he begins to realize that he might actually lose you, that's when his instinct to chase kicks in. And here's where your strength truly matters. When he does finally reach out, because trust me, he will, you don't greet him with overwhelming excitement. You don't jump back into the old rhythm. You don't pretend like the distance never happened. Instead, you stay composed. You respond calmly. You remain grounded, because in that moment, he needs to feel that the woman he once knew, the one who gave without question, who responded without hesitation, is gone. Now he's meeting someone different, someone who isn't easily available, someone who isn't waiting by the phone, someone who has changed. And that change is exactly what shakes him. Time isn't just working on him, it's working on you. While he sits there questioning his decisions, you've been growing. You've been evolving. You've been remembering who you are when you're not consumed by the need to be chosen. And this is the turning point, when you no longer need him to come back, when his return is no longer your goal, but your test. Because the real question is no longer, will he reach out? It's, do I even want him anymore? That's what emotional maturity looks like. That's what self-respect feels like. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about reaching a place where you genuinely don't need validation from someone who once made you question yourself. The longer you remain silent, the more space he has to realize what he's lost. And the longer you stay focused on your own growth, the clearer you become about what you truly deserve. So let him wonder. Let him overthink. Let him sit in the uncertainty he created. While he's watching the days go by, you're not waiting. You're building. You're living. You're becoming a woman who is no longer defined by who stays or who leaves, but by the unwavering love and respect she holds for herself. That's when everything changes. There's a powerful shift that happens the moment a woman stops being the one who waits. When she stops overanalyzing, stops chasing, stops bending to fit someone else's uncertainty, everything changes. Because here's the truth. Men are wired to pursue. When they no longer feel they have to try, when the effort disappears, so does their interest. That's why when you respond to his distance by reaching out, asking questions, trying to fix things, you're confirming something in his mind that no matter how he acts, you'll still be there. And once he believes that, he no longer feels the need to earn you. But the second you stop reacting, the second you create space and shift your energy inward, he starts to feel something unfamiliar. Men don't chase women they're certain about. They chase the ones they think they might lose. This isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate emotions. It's about understanding a very simple truth. People value what they might not be able to keep. If he thinks you'll be there no matter what, why would he change? But if he senses that your energy is shifting, if he starts to question whether you're still emotionally invested, he has to act, because now there's something at stake. The most attractive thing you can do isn't to show him how much you care. It's to show him through your actions that he no longer has automatic access to you. That if he wants your presence, your time, your energy, he's going to have to work for it. The biggest mistake women make when a man pulls away is rushing to fill the gap. They text first. They ask if something is wrong. They adjust their own standards just to keep him comfortable. But what if you did the opposite? What if, instead of moving toward him, you let him feel the distance? What if you made it clear without ever saying a word that you're no longer available to be taken for granted? And here's what happens when you flip that dynamic. At first, he might not notice. He might assume you're just busy or giving him space. But when he realizes you haven't come back, when the version of you who was always waiting is suddenly gone, that's when it hits. He starts to feel the void. He starts to replay moments in his mind. He starts to think about what went wrong, and more importantly, what he lost. Because men are competitive. They don't like to feel like they've lost something valuable. And when you become unavailable, not in a fake, performative way, but in a grounded, self-assured way, he begins to feel the urgency. He texts, he checks in, he initiates, he tries to figure out what changed. Not because you told him to, but because your energy forced him to confront the reality that he may no longer have access to you. And this is where most women stumble. The moment he shows interest again, they get excited. They respond immediately. They pick up where they left off. But when you do that, you teach him something dangerous, that all he has to do is disappear for a while, and you'll always be there when he returns. But you're not that woman anymore. When he comes back, your response is measured. You don't ignore him. You don't play cold. You simply don't give him what he used to expect. You create a new standard, a higher one where he can't just show up and expect everything to fall back into place. You make him earn his way back in. Because the truth is, you're not just resetting the dynamic with him, you're resetting it for yourself. You're no longer accepting halfway. You're no longer accepting inconsistency. You're no longer handing your time and emotional investment to someone who didn't handle it with care. That's where your power lives. Not in making him chase you for ego's sake, but in showing that your presence is earned, that your love, your attention, your peace of mind are reserved for someone who understands their value. And when a man